Miss Naomi Reynolds, you are suing Mr. Anthony Reynolds for $5,000 for emotional distress.
Mr. Reynolds is my Uncle Tony, the lake house that my grandmother owned. I found a handwritten note from her to me stating that this house will be mine.
The will didn't state that it was going to Naomi.
About a week after Grandma passed, my uncle sold the home.
I would have liked to have at least been part of the decision. It was the embodiment of my mother and of our family, and it's like he threw us all away.
I think, Mr. Reynolds, your family deserved better.
For the first time, we're bringing justice to you. Your location is the courtroom, and the truth has nowhere to hide.
That tells me all I need to know. I understand you don't like each other. I don't care.
Judge Faith, a former criminal prosecutor, legal analyst, and now creator of the first courtroom where justice has no walls, filters, or boundaries. Only truth. Virtual Justice with Judge Faith.
You're watching a special 2-week preview of Virtual Justice with Judge Faith. Want access to brand new cases and weekly live discussions with me? Stick around. I'll tell you how. Miss Naomi Reynolds.
Yes, Your Honor.
You are suing Mr. Anthony Reynolds for $5,000 for emotional distress.
That is correct, Your Honor.
You are countersuing, sir, for $5,000 for defamation of character.
Yes, Your Honor.
Now, I understand that there is a family home that is in dispute right now amongst the Reynolds family and the relatives, but you're here today just for the emotional distress side of the case. Of course, you cannot seek full value of the home, which is $125,000 in small claims court. So you understand that, correct, Ms. Reynolds? Okay, so I will hear from you first, Ms. Reynolds. I understand that the family has been split over this home. There is a will that was left in regards to this home. You believe that you are the rightful owner, but tell me about this case and tell me about your relationship with Mr. Reynolds and what that relationship is.
Mr. Reynolds is my Uncle Tony. And my father was not present in my life growing up. And so Uncle Tony assumed that role. And we were very close up until about 6 months ago. He was kind of like a father figure to me. And so that was very jarring when this happened because I didn't think that he would do something like this.
Okay, and when you say something like this, you're talking about what happened with this home that's in question. Before I get to your lawsuit, Mr. Reynolds, I'd like to hear from you about your relationship with Miss Naomi.
I treated her like a daughter. She didn't have a father. I acted like a father figure for her. I taught her how to ride a bike, taught her how to drive a car. I was there for her sweet 16. I moved her into college. Her fiance asked me if he could marry her because that's who I was to her. And in fact, I even offered to walk her down the aisle. I mean, that's how close we were.
And as I understand it, in the 6 months, the two of you have not spoken because now you're tied up in litigation in regards to this home. So tell me about the lawsuit, Ms. Reynolds, and why you're suing and about the property that's in question.
So this property was the lake house that my grandmother owned. And for as long as I can remember, she promised the lake house to me. And for many of these conversations, Mr. Reynolds was present. And so he had knowledge that this was promised to me. My grandmother and I were very, very close. And my fiance proposed to me on the dock of this house. And it was my dream to own this house one day and raise a family there. And about a week after Grandma passed, my uncle sold the home.
I'm sorry to hear that.
Thank you.
And what were the circumstances of that? How did you find out about it?
A few days later, he told me that the house was already in escrow.
Okay, so let's back up for a second. Are you saying it was a verbal arrangement you had with your grandmother where she told you she was leaving you this home and that your uncle was aware of it?
It wasn't until after she passed that I found a handwritten note from her to me stating that this house will be mine. And I believe I submitted that for evidence.
I would like to take a look at the handwritten note. This place is yours now. Carry on our summers. Remember the laughter, the dock at the sunset, the scent of the lake. In the morning, you carry my heart in yours. Where do you say this note was found?
This was found in one of her cookbooks, that
So it
she
wasn't
gave
given
to me.
directly to you?
Correct.
And when she says this place is yours, you are saying that she meant the lake house.
Yes, Your Honor.
Mr. Reynolds, I'll hear from you.
I listed the house. There was a lot of work that needed to be done. It had a leaky roof. It had back taxes, probate issues on it. And I didn't think anyone would have a care about me selling it. The will didn't state that it was going to Naomi.
Oh, so there is a will.
There's a will. Yes, there is. And I think that's been
Oh, okay. What exactly did the will say about the lake house? Because a written will would trump any verbal conversations you say the two of you had.
She wasn't specific in what she said. She said that she'd be leaving me something special. And I'm not sure why it was so ambiguous and cryptic, but we kind of all know that's what she meant.
Well, Mr. Reynolds is
And-
saying that he didn't know that's what she meant.
And that's where I am saying that he is lying to.
Coming up,
Why not have a conversation with them about it before you so quickly move into selling the home?
I was the one that was doing the upkeep. I was the one that was doing all the work.
Who is your witness, Miss Reynolds?
It's my mom.
And this is your sister, Mr. Reynolds?
Yes, it is, Your Honor.
I would have liked to have at least been part of the decision. It was the embodiment of my mother and of our family, and it's like he threw us all away.
Did you submit a copy of the will or the portion of the will?
Mm-hmm. Yes, I
Okay,
did.
let me take a look at this. To my granddaughter Naomi, who's always held my heart and shared my summers, I leave a special item from the estate that reminds her of our cherished time together. It is my hope that this gift serves as a lasting symbol of the memories we created. Okay, so that is very vague. I have no idea what that's in reference to. Naomi, you're saying you are attributing that statement as your grandmother saying she meant to leave this lake house to you. But if she wanted to leave the lake house to you, why didn't she just say, I want to leave the lake house to my granddaughter? You're the executor of the estate, right, Mr. Reynolds? And that's how you are in charge of all of the property that was left as her son.
Yes.
So what do you have to say about that, Miss Reynolds? She was not specific.
Her will was not very well written. That wasn't her forte, because she could ramble on about things but never really get to a point. So I'm not surprised. But Uncle Tony knew about this. He had heard conversation after conversation of how when this house is mine from Grandma.
Is that true,
Yes.
Mr. Reynolds?
Obviously, there were conversations where she alluded to that. If she wanted to definitively give it to you, Naomi, she could have just said, leave the lake house to Naomi. And she put some thought into what she did put in the will for you, but it wasn't specific.
Who is your witness, Miss Reynolds?
It's my mom.
And this is your sister, Mr. Reynolds?
Yes, it is, Your Honor.
Okay. Hi, you are Miss Karen Reynolds?
Yes, Your Honor.
Thank you for being here. I understand that you are Naomi's mom. And
Right.
where do you stand in the middle of this? What is your position, Miss Reynolds?
Well, it's very upsetting to me because I can tell you since the time Naomi was a little girl, my mother said, this lake house is going to Naomi. And Anthony knew this. He was present many times. And then we have the note from my mother. It's very upsetting to me that he's did this so quickly without even telling us that he was going to sell the home.
And why did you sell the home so quickly, Mr. Reynolds? That is a good point that she raised. Why?
The holidays were coming. I wanted this to be behind us. We had a lot of stress with her passing, and I felt it was the best thing because, like I said, I looked at the will, and the will did not say that she was leaving it to anyone specifically. She had back taxes. There was debt on the house. It needed a new roof, and roofs cost a lot of money nowadays. I mean,
But why didn't you have a conversation? If you knew that Naomi and her mom had an emotional attachment, because everything you're talking about is the money, the bottom line, the physical work that needed to be done. But now we're talking about your family members who have an emotional attachment to this home. Why not have a conversation with them about it before you so quickly move into selling the home? What was your reason for that?
Well, Your Honor, they all knew that the house needed work, and
I'm
was
not
I
asking you
wrong?
what you thought they knew. I'm asking you about your reasoning.
My reasoning was simple. I was the one that was doing the upkeep. I was the one that was doing all the work. No one was coming to assist in any way. It was just me. And if they were interested, they could have said something. I mean, it's my fault that, I didn't say something versus them coming forward.
We had a week.
You were doing the
A
upkeep
week
for a
after.
week? Yeah.
Was still very much in grief. We had a week, and it was just like money, money, money. I
And
would have liked to have at least been part of the decision. I would. This was very. We had so many wonderful summers there with my mother, and the fact is that it was way more than money. It was memories. It was. It was the embodiment of my mother and of our family, and it's like he threw us all away.
she was our mother. She wasn't just your mother. And
Which is the
if mom
reason why the money shouldn't have been as important to you, Tony, because it was our
mom
mother.
mom knew that you couldn't handle this, which is why she made me the executor. You know that.
Mr. Reynolds, I believe you when you say she said it. The problem is she didn't write it. Despite knowing what she said, it's what you did and how you did it. The fact that you did not even have a conversation and then you moved so quickly. Your mom hadn't even been passed away for a couple of weeks and the home is already up on the market and they can't really do anything about it because it's in escrow when they discover that this is all happening. If this moment had you talking to the screen, wait until you see the rest of the cases. On my virtual justice channel, I go live every week to break it all down and share brand new episodes. Scan the code now to join me.
Coming up.
He personally profited from it, Your Honor. With listing himself as the listing agent, he made about 3%.
He sold the property and also was the listing agent, so he made a commission.
Yes, Your Honor.
Is that true, Mr. Reynolds? You made $9,000.
Yes, Your Honor.
So did you share that $9,000 with your family, with your niece, with her sister? You're personally profiting now?
He made money off the sale.
Yeah, he did.
He personally made money, or the estate made the money? Because he said he had to pay off bills.
He personally profited from it, Your Honor. With listing himself as the listing agent, he made about 3%, coming out to around $9,000.
Okay, so he sold the property and also was the listing agent, so he made a commission.
Yes, Your Honor.
Is that true, Mr. Reynolds? You made $9,000.
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay.
And I listed it from the standpoint of why.
So did you share that $9,000 with your family, with your niece, with her sister? Because now you made some money off of the property. I understand you're saying that doesn't go back into the estate because you're the listing agent, but how did you mean you're personally profiting now?
Your Honor, my plan was to list it and then share it. However, then everything went bananas, so I didn't do anything.
Okay, so you haven't had a chance to share that $9,000.
I purposely haven't shared it, and
okay.
Hopefully, he'll be sharing it today.
So when you and I spoke,
I don't know,
Ms.
Reynolds.
I asked you why the house was sold, you couldn't have mentioned it then?
I couldn't have mentioned the commission?
Yeah.
Because you guys went on a tirade against me. That's why.
And that's what your counterclaim is about. You're suing because you say you have been for defamation and emotional damages.
Yeah, they posted that I was a money-hungry snake and that I was stealing her legacy on social media. And now I've got people looking at me and shaking their heads, and I'm getting all this negative, like I did something horribly wrong. And, they posted something and went viral, and now I'm the one that's feeling the suffering from it.
Well, it's not slander if it's true, Tony.
Putting social media aside, what's been the dynamic with you and the family?
Yeah,
since all of this happened?
I was just about to say that, Your Honor. We had a family reunion that I couldn't attend because of how much tension's going on. At Thanksgiving, I was asked to bring a dessert, and everyone in our family knows that I make an incredible macaroni and cheese that
Oh my
everybody
god,
raves
macaroni
Oh,
and
about
cheese.
every
he's
year.
more upset about the macaroni and cheese than he is about
No,
his
I'm not.
niece. Yes,
No, I'm
you
not.
are.
And you
Well,
know that by
I bought
asking
extra
me to not
panko.
bring it, that you're blackballing me with the family. You know
Oh, give
exactly
me a
what you did.
break. Give
Blackballed
me a
yourself,
break.
Tony.
Are
You
you a
blackballed
child?
yourself. Yeah, you really are. Sorry, Your Honor.
Okay. You said you have another piece of evidence, Miss Reynolds, that you submitted to court that you want me to look at. What is that piece of evidence?
I reached out to the buyer and they sent me screenshots of text conversations between Uncle Tony and themselves.
How did you find the buyer of the home? How did you find out who that was? Public information?
Yes, it's public information. And so I reached out, I let them know that the house was supposed to go to me, and I guess they didn't really want anything to do with this. So they just sent me all the information over so that we could deal with it within our family.
Okay, so let me look at the messages you submitted into court. This is Naomi Reynolds. I believe you bought the lake house on Briar Lake. It was my grandmother's. He responds, yes, I did. I'm really sorry if this message means something went wrong. You told him, I just found out it was sold. I wasn't told that house meant everything to me. I was under the impression it was being left to me. And he tells you he did not know that your uncle handled everything. And he said the family agreed to the sale not long
And
after
that
the
is
funeral, maybe 2 weeks after.
and that
Mm.
is not true, Your Honor.
And that your uncle reached out to him directly. Okay. You tell him that he never gave you a chance to object or even say goodbye. So
Yes,
is
sir.
that true, Mr. Reynolds, that you reached out to this individual about selling the home?
Yes, I did.
This is a tough case. Go ahead, Mr. Reynolds.
He's a developer. He's a friend of mine. And just because he's my friend doesn't mean anything. But he looked at the property and said, yeah. And he planned on doing some work to that place.
Mr. Reynolds, who made you the executor of the estate?
My mother did.
And Miss Reynolds, you are aware that she made that decision, right, to make Mr. Reynolds the executor of the estate?
Yes, Your Honor.
Miss Karen Reynolds, are you aware of that as well?
I am. She knew, I was a busy single mom, and I think she thought that Tony would be better in have more time, really.
But she trusted him. She trusted him in that position. Am I right,
We all trusted
Miss
him.
Reynolds? Okay. The money that was made from the sale of the house, Mr. Reynolds, I just want to be clear. You're saying that all of the proceeds from the sale of the home, you're saying that that went to cover bills, taxes, other things that you had to take care of as the executor of the estate.
Yes, Your Honor.
And what you have to do, Naomi and Karen, when you're in court dealing with the actual sale of the home, you want proof of that to see where those funds went.
Yes, Your Honor.
And you want him to be able to substantiate where those funds went, that they did in fact go to cover expenses of the estate. And as the executor, he knows that he's supposed to keep meticulous notes and proof of that. Lastly, although my heart is with you, Naomi and Karen, the law isn't. On your counterclaim for defamation, you haven't presented any evidence of defamation in court. Even the statements that you said they've made, they're inviting you now to family events and asking you to bring dessert instead of the famous dish you cook every year. Clearly, you're taking that as you're being clearly blackballed, but that's not proof of defamation. Doesn't rise to the level of a defamation claim of $5,000 in court. I think you're countersuing because you're upset because your family is suing you. You're watching a 2-week preview of Virtual Justice with Judge Faith. The full season continues on my Fireside channel with brand new cases, shocking verdicts, and weekly live Q&As with me. Don't miss it. Subscribe now. Here is where the difficult part is. You're suing Ms. Reynolds for emotional damages, $5,000. But really the underlying issue here is this home. And looking at the portion of the will that you sent me, the way the law works, and you're going to hear this in another courtroom, should you go and pursue this other claim for the value of the home elsewhere. Your grandmother had a will. Unless you are contesting that will, that she was not in her right frame of mind, that somehow she was coerced, that somehow that will is somehow invalid, you're going to have an uphill battle in terms of arguing that she meant to leave the lake house to you. To Mr. Reynolds' credit, what he said in court today, she could have clearly stated that. You are saying in court that she made all of these verbal promises. When there is a written will, that is the document that the court is bound by. A written will. Verbal statements do not trump, do not override a written will and that statement in the statements that have been put out. That's what the court looks at. They look at the four corners of that document. If the four corners of that document are clear and unambiguous, they do not go outside of that document. You're saying that that portion of the will should be interpreted as leaving you the lake house. I do not think the court will agree with you. And I am just giving you my honest and professional opinion looking at this. It's unfortunate because I think it's unfair what happened to you and your mom. I think it was wrong.
Thank
I think
you.
it was totally unfair. And I think, Mr. Reynolds, your family deserved better. Especially, you're going through a time of deep grief. Now, I will tell you, a lot of people grieve in different ways. They just want to get everything out of the way. They want to sell. They want to move. They want to clean out. It is a way of coping. But in this instance, now you're making a profit. You made $9,000. You made a commission. You made money from it. But you didn't treat your family right in the process. They deserve to know. They deserve to have that communication. They deserve to have that closure, and you took that away from them. Legally, Ms. Reynolds, you're not entitled to $5,000 in emotional damages. Because legally, I don't find that Mr. Reynolds did anything illegal. And I think the other court that you are seeking an adjudication on with this home, I think that they're going to agree with me. But I do wish your family well, but your lawsuit for $5,000 for emotional damages is dismissed. Good luck to your family.
Thank you, Your Honor.